Welcome to Radio Essence. My name is Susanne Lindberg, and I'm recording from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. I thought a good thing for today would be to tell a story. I have to get used to this frustrating thing with monologue in front of a microphone. And a story before I start with serious stuff. I dare to say this is a story you have never heard before. If you haven't heard me telling about it, and then you have never heard the whole story. And you have never seen this story in a movie or read it in a book. It's not that kind of beautiful story like last time, like I've solved all the mysteries in the world, and no, I have for many years said that this is the only mystery I haven't solved, and the reason being that I just can't solve it alone. So I have had to ask myself, why do I want to tell this story? There is a personal reason. I remember at school I used to writing and later talking about things just to get things out of my system. And this is a story that I think I want to get out of my system completely and send it to the person actually it concerns. And if he listens or not, it doesn't matter. It's just like I always have tried to tell him, but yeah, I things will get clearer the further I get. And I have never needed to search for a subject to talk about, because it just suddenly enters my head, and from that moment it just turns and turns and turns until I have made the recording. That's like gone. So I've been very occupied with this story the latest weeks, and it's frustrating. I just want it out. And is this a good way? I'm not completely sure, but I hope so. But there is as well a strong connection with what I talked about last week. I talked about something that I call energy. And it's a subject like the normal reaction is, oh, yes, I believe in that, or no, I don't believe in that, kind of stuff. It is, to me, something you have the experience with or not. And it is not recognized. I'm surprised about the Dutch language, how it gets used. Like, if we vote with our beliefs, we make it true, kind of stuff. Now, we're saying that you believe or you do not believe, you as well say you do not know. And please do not believe me. Just please listen. It's another aspect of this energy level that has nothing to do with something new age or spiritual. The subject will make that clear. But to me it is a reality because of all the experience I've had, and this is one of the experiences. And why call him Mr.X? To me it doesn't matter. I could mention the name. But if I one day sit and look him in the eyes, I think it will be easier if I haven't. It took me some years before I found out his name and what he's doing. And strangely enough, this person, I do not really know him. So to me as well, he could be Mr.X. The main part of this story takes place between 20 years ago. But I will tell you a little bit short about how I got there, and actually until present time. So I did talk about Say Thai last time, and I will not bring it up again. I will say that, except that it helped me to develop a very effective treatment. As well, it changed things, several things, physical. I got to know someone. Her name was Susanne, from Sweden, just like me. She did modern dance. And once she took me to one of these New Age places. And I was looking and I thought, oh, they are dancing like crazy. I'm a typical musician. I'm stiff as you do not know what. I do not dance. But I was standing there watching for some times, and then I started. And from then on, I loved dancing. It's like an addiction. I just love it. And regularly I went out dancing, but until I got to a point when I couldn't enter these New Age places without getting a headache. It was like it's flying. It was the energy was too high, so I had to stop. I had a good friend. It was let's say a little kind of strange relationship, and his name was Jose, and I came from Venezuela. There was someone practicing in the big hall, and I asked him in for a cup of coffee. And he sat down, and I saw this kind of mountain of diamonds in front of me, just like a vision. And everything went on very strange, but the only thing I can, to myself, explain our relationship that makes sense is that it had more to do with the past life than the present. If it's true or not doesn't matter, but it gives me some kind of explanation in that very strange time as well. I remember we walked along one of the Amsterdam canals, and I was talking about shottis, the Swedish folk dance, and he said, "Oh, it's just like salsa." Before that time, I had never heard that name, salsa. I had heard samba since I was a child, but salsa, it was the first time. He took me out dancing once to Iboya, but he wasn't really dancing, he was a musician as well, so, but I wanted to go dance salsa. And I did this kind of education. It was 20 years ago. And I had asked someone if she wanted to join me, and said yes, she was going to tell me when. I did mention last week that I would tell you something about projection, and this is quite a funny one. Well, no, it was quite annoying, but during the summer before, I suddenly got a date in my head, and it was 4th of December. Then I would meet the man. I just knew it. I don't know how it came up, but suddenly it was in my head. And this woman in this group suddenly says that, what about 4th of December? Should we go dancing? So, the evening of 4th of December, I'm sitting there in Iboya together with her. She had one man beside her, and me another one. And he says, his name is Jose. Okay. Where do you come from? Venezuela. And he was a musician. He was actually playing on the stage that evening. So it was a little bit too much. Someone so important to me before was Jose from Venezuela. And there, at that special evening, 4th of December, I knew I had known for about half a year before, well, that's a date, sitting there with this man, Jose from Venezuela, a musician. I remember I whispered to my friend, "Is that the man?" I know that whatever happened then wouldn't have happened the way it happened if I hadn't had those kind of prediction kind of things in my head. It's not the only example I have of that kind of things that really ended wanting to see the future. Even if I have a lot of information that still haven't come through and might or might not, it's not something I want to be busy with. And I do remember I told him, not the whole story because it was just too much, I knew that, but I told him something. And I think he's the running type. But with this information as well, he ran. I never saw him again. So, yeah, that was my start. But we went out dancing salsa every weekend after that. Mr.X, he might have been there that evening. But that's the only thing I remember from my first time. The way I learned salsa was really for every step, especially during merengue, to think down, down, down. It was like I had to find the earth where it was, because it was just the opposite of the New Age dancing. What was frustrating as well was that I really was there to dance. I loved it. But compared with the New Age places where you just went up on the dance floor and danced as you wanted, here you were dependent on men. And many men were not there because of the dancing, but because of other things. A frustrating situation I had to deal with for years. Last week I was telling about me staring at a man. Here the story starts, and I will tell it just as I experienced it and as I remember it, because not everything is clear. Like before this situation, I know he had my attention, but I can't remember about why and how, and I love to walk along the canals, and I remember standing along the Amstel River. It's very peaceful in the evenings, and having a kind of conversation with him, seeing him in front of me, like present. It's very blurry. I do not know what I was thinking, what was going on, but it was not only that time that I was staring at him, and this thing of not being able to see him. Like I said last time, and my eyes worked well, my hearing was good, but there was a seeing that wasn't present, that I've never before or after experienced in my life. And me sitting there and trying to find out why, who is he, and so on. This specific moment was in Salsa Cafe at the Costa Cana. I remember because I as well could see like a brick wall in between us. And seeing this brick wall, I as well some way knew that we both had built this brick wall. I asked myself, what is the material? Because a brick wall is a vision of something. And the answer I got was that these bricks was made out of fear. So there I sit there and wondering, why this wall? Why do we have made the effort of building this brick wall between us? It was just a lot of questions, and me staring, and I wondering how much he noticed, and I couldn't stop staring. Because it was so strange to look at someone and not seeing the same kind of seeing I use at my work, but that is not conscious, but it's there. We all have it. It's so easy to learn people to use it, be aware of it. So it's nothing strange, at least to me. I know I became much better in salsa, and so I'm wondering if you would ask me to dance. I didn't dare myself, so it took some time, but I know we had a first dance. It was a nice dance, that was it. But the second time, I remember during a turn, he very softly touched my stomach. And it's a place I just know I've never been touched during dance before or after. It was very strange. And it was like that hand told me, do not be afraid. And then I can't remember where we were in the room. We were at a little different kind of place during the same dance. Suddenly, I felt like a touch on my heart, and at the same time, I heard a voice in my ear saying, at last at home. That's quite heavy stuff. It was a male voice, never heard before. Okay, I have had kind of conversation with a voice during a time. But it was like it was me. It was my higher self or something. I could ask questions, I got answer. It was a short time, and I felt like we integrated. We became one, and after that, no voices in my head. This was a male voice, telling at last at home. I got in such a panic. It was like I didn't know how to get away from there fast enough. It was crazy. It was just like the door. After the dance, I just panicked and left. It was crazy. First of all, that male voice. I knew at the moment if it had been my voice, it would have maybe said the same thing, but in a way that I might be able to have handled the situation, not panicked. So whoever he was, guardian angel or maybe his voice, I do not know, but I said, you're fired. You're gone. I don't want anything more to do with you. I haven't heard from him again. I don't know, but that was what I said. And those words, at last at home, they have a meaning, but to me, from what I had worked with, looked at, they had even stronger meaning. They spoke directly to visions I had in before. So, what happened? I don't know if if it, I don't know. Let's keep this thing of is this true or not? Just on the side for a moment. But it was like someone's telling me that there is an open door. I'm standing in front of an open door, and he says, "This is paradise. It's open. It's for you. It's just to enter." And me panicking, running as far away as I can. It's painful. It was a pain that to discover that I prefer to be miserable and crazy stuff and all kind of things in paradise. Oh, forget about it. I knew that the biggest fear a lot of us carry is for complete freedom and happiness. That's a knowledge I had, but this was a confrontation, like of the first degree. So that pain I had to deal with for a long time after that. And then is the thing, is this true or not? I do not believe what I'm told. I mean that not being able to see the person makes me unable to tell for myself, is that someone for me? I mean, it's not, when that seeing is not there, you can absolutely not fall in love on the first sight, kind of thing. It's impossible, because that has to do with that seeing. Somewhere I knew I blew it, because from having watched him, I just knew, with me running away like that, he would not ask me for a third dance. So suddenly everything was up to me. And what do I find in myself? First of all, something I had from the beginning, I think. A very deep rooted. It even hurt to find out how deep rooted. My conviction was that he was not interested in me. One day I will talk about belief. This is kind of real belief, because it was not based on facts. I just did not know. But it was deep, and connected with that was this very firm taboo. I do not approach a man if I don't think he's interested in me. Those two things didn't fit together. So suddenly I was like in a drama and not knowing the way out, being confronted with all the taboos and beliefs I've carried, I've had to be confronted with, and these were heavy ones, really. And from there on starts a year that is the craziest year I've had in my life. It's less than, I think it is less than a year. And I could describe it as a horror movie, ghost movie, where all kind of powers in the world try to push me to go to that man, to approach that man, Mr.X. And everything in me saying, no, no, no chance. The thing is, with the cleaning I've done lately, the memory of this year is, in principle, gone. I remember could tell the whole story in details for several years after, and it was a ghost story, I know, but this is what I remember is not those parts. I have two memories of that time. It was weekend and I went dancing and I knew, okay, I have to talk with this man. I had to approach him. And he was in the neighborhood. I could have had. But there comes a kind of feeling like, no, too complicated. I don't feel like it. No, and there I shrunk, and then I went home and I got sick. Bed sick, flu, cold kind of thing. I did recover just well enough to go dancing the week after. In the same situation, I could have approached him, and the same kind of thoughts came in my mind, and I said, no, I don't feel like it. Let's forget about it. Myself shrinking, going home, getting sick. Just recover enough for the next weekend. This went on, I don't know for how long, but until I really said, okay, I get the message. I will do my best. It's complicated, might take some time, but I will do it. The other thing I can remember, actually I had been at his place because he had given me, let's say, papers, and I think it was some time later I was reading this article of his, in cleaning him out of my system and my house. I've thrown it away, but I do remember reading a line, something like journalist saying, as I followed him through the years, I started to cry. And I didn't start to cry a little bit. I was really crying. At the same time kind of saying, why am I crying? It was absurd. The tears, they did tell me that the reason why my life has started so hard, so difficult, was that we were born so far away from each other. I can't tell you if this is true or not, but it was a sorrow that came from so deep. And believe or not believe, I had problem believing anything that happened that year. It was like crazy. It's like I was saying time after time that it can't be true. It's just madness what's going on. I think as well it was during this time that I became friend with a friend of his. And it's a story in itself that's quite long, but I'll try to make it short. I did come in a situation that I suddenly knew I had to tell him about Mr.X, his friend. And, of course, you do not tell the friend, so they can sit there and laugh together and talk about me. You just don't. And still I had to. And to my surprise, he got so happy. It was spontaneous. It was like, wow! And he wanted really to help me. He wanted to see Mr.X and me together. As well, what happened was there were two moments I can tell I really lost it. It was like things became too much. And just like surprise, he turns up and he helped me through these moments in a very strange way. And I loved him really as a friend. I couldn't have had anything more with him. I just knew. Even if you didn't think about him having a girlfriend, and me with my Mr. X, I didn't feel good about having a relationship with him. But once I saw a kind of rainbow around him, like he has all colors, he has all qualities. It was like he's complete. But that doesn't tell anything about how a person uses these qualities. And he became my inside man. I think he was the one telling me his name, telling me his profession. I don't think I knew it before that, and he told me other things. So, in this very crazy time, he was my anchor, he was my support. And that was the reason why, at the other hand, he hurt me a lot. My very, very big mistake was letting it happen, but it was like I couldn't do anything else. Just to give you an idea, I had a ticket for Celia Cruz in Antwerp. I mean, it was in I think, a sport arena with completely full with people, a lot of young people. And imagine this 70, 80-year-old woman supported up to the stage, and the whole arena going through the roof. It was amazing. What a woman. So, but okay, back in time. I did mention to him that I had this ticket, and this is important. I didn't ask. He suggested that I went with him and his girlfriend with their car to Antwerp. And I mean, she was very sweet. I liked her a lot. So, but still, I asked more than once, "Is this okay? Are you sure?" "Yes, no problem. You can go with us." And he didn't phone me. By some reason, I phoned him. The first thing he says on the phone is, "Have you found someone to get a ride with to Antwerp?" And me saying, "But you said that." No, they were going with another couple, so no. At that time, it was like I had experienced so many times that kind of thing, so how could I have been so stupid to just think that I could go with them in the car to Antwerp? I mean, in the beginning, he made an appointment, said, I come tomorrow at 4 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock, I phoned him and asked him, where are you? Oh, something came in between. I come tomorrow at this and that time. So quite fast, I counted to 10 times, and there it went on. When I was moving, the counter went very, very fast with all the things he offered to do, not what I asked. At the same time, he never kind of accepted that he hurted me. It was so strange. It was like him, in another manner, making connection with me. Because I know if you make an appointment with a pupil, with a client, with a friend, it's like making a bond. And he constantly made that bond with me without being able to make it real. I got to my senses when it was about work. Twice he asked to join a course, to my surprise. And twice I ended my relationship with him. I don't know how stupid I could be to let him do what I never let anyone do, to join a course without paying in advance. And I remember one time his very present, absent on the chair, standing there for him. It disturbed the lesson. I couldn't function. And in the break, I did phone him, ask his girlfriend if she had to wake him up, and him becoming angry at me because I was waking him up, while he had said he would be there. So, very strange. But in some way, it functioned as with Mr.X, a connection that wasn't real. So I did approach Mr.X, and the ways I did it, I went by to his workplace, and I wrote letters. I phoned, I think a couple of times, but I wasn't really stalking him. It took such an effort every time I did something. Like I might have gone by, but maybe 3-4 times. I have really a problem to remember, but I suppose he has about 5-6 letters. I remember those visits to his place. The first one, we had very superficial conversations. And I came there and had things I really had to say. Walking there was like walking through hell. I was shaking like a leaf, even more than that. I've never been shaking so much. It was like it's too much. It was like thinking about that brick wall and knowing that if it was only my fear, I could have handled it. But this was much more, and I couldn't handle it. I came there and I have told him several times, I'm shaking like crazy. This is more than my own fear. I don't know what's going on. So I couldn't kind of keep a normal conversation. It was impossible. And to get to the point, I really needed to say no way. But I remember this superficial kind of conversation. He was talking about racism. And he used that word as synonym several times. And every time he mentioned that word, I felt a slap in my face. I knew something is going on. It's not okay. Something is wrong, and I have to mention it. But I didn't get so far. It was really like a physical slap in my face. And other things. Maybe every time, but I remember twice he had me waiting. In a insulting manner. But what could I do? I wasn't myself to say what I should have said. And there came April. I know, because I started to search for an apartment. I just had to move in half a year, so. And in the beginning of my search, I got an apartment. And they kind of gave me the key and go have a look and take it if you want. The thing was, Ed was on his street where he was living. And I just knew at that time that, am I going to live on the same street as he is living? I have to know. If he's not interested in me, forget it. I want to live in the other side of the city, not on the same street. To be reminded and so, no, I want to be far away. That's it. So at that time, there came one important point where I just knew I had to see him. And at this point, we made a date. Amazing! I suppose I found him that time. Of course, it got cancelled. He phoned and said he had to leave. He had to go on a trip and he had to leave earlier than planned. So that was it. I did look at that flat and I got a headache. It was on the top floor and I got a headache. I just knew I can't live there. Whatever. So that made it easy. But of course he said that we could make a date when he came back. But yeah, it didn't really happen. But that day that we should have had a date was during daytime. And I was at home and suddenly I feel something. Let's say I have had quite amazing experiences with men. A couple that really you hit the roof kind of thing. Let's say that it was maybe not that far, but close by. Someone was doing things to me. And it wasn't subtle. Then I wouldn't have felt, my body wouldn't have reacted like it did. It was really strong, something going on. It was a man I know I've never experienced. I know my kind of fantasy and how I function. I would have never been able to make that up. And the other thing I knew, Mr. X was sitting on an airplane over the Atlantic Sea. So the only explanation is that he's sitting there being bored, but I wonder how did he do it? I suppose he had people around him. I don't understand. I mean, how is it possible? I don't know. I've just experienced this, and no one needs to believe me. It was a part of all this madness. It's just stupid. It can't. And that I walked around with for a long time, because maybe it was pleasant for a second time as well. But after that, it became the daily rape. Very mechanical and really not pleasant. It it mostly happened during daytime, I think. I remember the picture of walking in from the park and feeling all these things going on. And after some time I started to notice a kind of strange timing, because if someone is kind of having a fantasy, there's no timing in it. It's just. But this was like there was something actually technical going on. The only way I've been able to explain it is that he was using this one of those full-size dolls and kind of imagining my face on it, something like that. I don't know, but that's the only thing I could come up with. And if I had any kind of proof, if I had a video like I could show him and say, this is what you're doing to me, I might have been able to just walk up to him. But it was like I got let's say a present from somewhere, a gift for a short time of my life. It's like something wanted to convince me, because it was hard to believe. I had a short period where I felt other men fantasizing about me. The three men. One was this incredible dancer. I mean, he he was such a dancer. He was completely mad. Had been dancing with him some time, and I just loved it. It's one of those dancers who does don't put one foot where it should be, like kind of thing. And I learned to dance very well with him, and there was not many who could. And we kind of had kind of performance there nearly. It was wonderful. Suddenly, without we ever had kind of conversation with each other, we had just been dancing. He one day asked me, "Do you want a relationship with me?" And yeah, I had to say no. Some time later, he came and asked me, "You want to go to bed with me?" And as well I said no. There was then this moment when I asked him, "Did you fantasize about me at this moment then?" And he confirmed it. And after that, he never danced with me again. I found it a pity, but you do intrude in the most private part in a person's life. So, okay, that happened. There was someone else who confirmed it. And then there was my inside man. He found that. He found it so funny, so he really consciously did it. And I just had to beg him, please stop. It's not pleasant. Please. So he did. But there was three men who confirmed it. And I never lost my doubts. Not completely. Every time I have been to him, I mean, it was like going home, licking your wounds, and take, get back in the old situation, realize I had to talk to him. I'm building up a kind of motivation, and there I went again. So at least a couple of months in between, it was nothing I did easy. But not too long after that no date, I might have phoned him, and I got to his place, and we went to a cafe, sat along one of the canals, because everything with this daily stuff, it became even more urgent. As before, I had problem to just be myself, to talk normal. It was impossible. One thing I get out of my mouth was, I have never been so much in love in my whole life. Telling that was actually a lie. I knew that was it. In the state I was in, that was the only thing I could get out of my mouth. So that is what happened. Because the truth was too complicated, and so that was it. And to me, to really love someone is that someone is also capable of touching me, not physical but emotionally. And this man, yes, it was true, he touched my heart during that dance I told you about. But it was not the kind of, "Oh, he touched my heart" kind of thing. No. The very strange thing about it, it was like, not with his hand, but still, it was like a physical touch on my heart. So under my definition, if you put it like that, of love, yes, he touched my heart, but not in that way. So it was kind of strange thing. It did have a function. Something happened. With those words, I now realized that I did break through that brick wall that I had seen in the past. And very unexpected. Yes, he says, "What should we do?" I mean, it sounded like he was asking me, should we take the car and leave the country together? It was that kind of reaction. I was so surprised, and as stupid as I was at that moment, I tried to answer with, I don't know, kind of thing. So he did snap out of it immediately. And suddenly, if there was no wall between us, he started to talk about this woman. During the years, I've very seldom seen him with a woman. But me as well, if I've had something with someone happen sometimes, I have kept it outside the dancing. So I didn't know. But he started telling me about a woman that I had seen with him, but she was stiff as I don't know what. And he's a dancer, so I didn't really, I didn't think so much about it. And he says, "Oh, didn't you know?" Precisely in that manner, he told me. And later, I will kind of jump in time now. But later, I felt miserable. There was something wrong with me. I found something in my heart. It was like a knife. And I could pull that knife out of my heart and feel big relief. And within a couple of days, it was like healed. It was crazy, but that is what I did, what I experienced, so with those words, he threw the knife in my heart. Yes, then, you have heard crazy things before, what he does. So, but then he starts very much in his mind and telling, yes, I know her for a long time, and this and that, completely in his head. I wanted to talk to him because I wanted to know. And there I got no yes. I got no, and I got a yes, and I got a no. So that was about it, and the only thing I said that kind of came from a good place inside of me, that was like, I'm not capable really, be myself. Please let us meet another time. Just talk like normal people. Of course it never happened. So at the moment I broke through the wall, he put another woman in front of me. Amazing. And still, kind of, he kept me in the dark all the time, like distant. Kept me in the dark, like it was a game he was playing. I remember I walked home, and I was late, and there was a pupil waiting together with her mother. I heard later that that mother, the same day, she had a brain. Oh, let's see what it's called. Hersenbloeding in Dutch. Hjärnblödning. Brain bleeding. It's not the name in the English, but and had a long time before. It took a long time before she got recovered. I felt like the same thing happened to me, but not physically. It was like it happened on a energy level, that I broke it through my own taboos and things that day. That yeah, it was quite a day. It might be around this time that I as well started to write these letters, a couple of letters. I remember the first time I was walking on the street and suddenly he was gone. It was just like completely gone. It had been so present in me and then disappearing. And I knew at that moment he read my letter. And it took about a week and then he returned. It was a very difficult balance of course, not telling too much in a letter because whatever, it sounds just mad. And at the same time, kind of tell some things, you making understand that it's to me very important, and for both of us, important to have this just a talk. Because of all the things I was trying, the thing I never have been able to try was to get a kind of normal communication. If there is a communication going on, and one on this level, it might disappear if we could bring it to a normal communication, like daily, what we all do. And he never gave me that opportunity. And then we could have been shouting and screaming and we hate each other and that's it about thing, but it doesn't matter. It's just to bring it to something normal, to get rid of this stuff, because it did intrude not only in me as a person, but it intrude on the level where I work, in what I teach people, what I have had done for several years. And I wasn't capable to get rid of it. I had times I was working so hard. I've used help, I have used all the method and things I could imagine to get rid of it, and it didn't work. Daily rape. I did see him then more and more with his girlfriend. And let's say it was like they were giving a kind of theater play there behind. I mean, that was a woman of playing games, manipulating. It was too clear, too obvious on a distance what was going on. And me finding myself thinking, oh, poor man in that situation. Until I get, I mean, he chose for it, so enjoy it. And it is a part. I mean, is that kind of man for me? And that is something important. A man who is choosing that kind of woman couldn't be anything for me. Because in that kind of game and things that we're playing, there has to be two. It's not only her. Because it wouldn't function if not both persons take their role in this game. And at the same time, this watching was going on. I don't know if it ever stopped. And this was from two sides. He watched me all the time, even with his girlfriend with him. And me trying to ask him with my eyes, as I couldn't talk to him, why? Why don't you leave me alone? You have made your choice. What is going on? What do you want from me? What is going... I was full of these questions. And of course I was there watching because otherwise I wouldn't have seen him watching, and the opposites as well. That situation became so ridiculous. So at a certain time I just had to decide that I have to ignore him 100%. So after that, I didn't see him anymore. I don't know what he was doing. And of course I could have chosen to not go dancing at the same place. But this place was 2-3 minutes walking from my house. There were the people I loved to dance with. Sometimes they were there, sometimes not. And me loving this dancing, he had enough influence on my life. I just couldn't let him take that away from me. It would have just been too much. There were moments where I really enjoyed myself with someone, or he had to be there. Once I remember suddenly he was there, alone, without girlfriend, and me having such a wonderful time with someone and dancing, and him standing next to us. He couldn't leave me alone. I have had to ask myself, really, what's my part in this? What am I doing the same to him? Why can't he tell me if he experienced something like that? What is my weakness? What is my weak points? I had to work so hard, so much, to see where are the holes, where does he get in, how do I get him out? But that kind of looking at me constantly and being there, if I'm having fun, you had to be there. I can't call it anything else than obsession. Was I obsessed? I asked myself that question, and I have kind of, an experience like that in my past that, you could call a slight obsession. This felt completely different. And now that something that stopped me to take contact with him was that I didn't want to intrude. And until I had to say to myself, he's intruding in my life. And he has to know that he's doing that. I'm not capable to change it on my own. I need him working with me to be able to change it. I wanted to go on with my life. I did experience a couple of times that I met a man, present, not on a distant, present in front of me, that I at least wanted to get to know. I couldn't. I had to say that, no, there's someone in my head all the time. I have to find out what that is. I didn't want to be with one and have someone else in my head. I couldn't do that. I had to stop with saying that. But then things happen. Like, I remember once when someone was sitting in the chair in front of me, and suddenly there was Mr.X. And I'm doing everything, trying to not make the person who is sitting there noticing, but at the same time say, kind of, fuck off. And I had to close my eyes and then open, and then he was gone. And then another kind of strange, in the situation, I was really not thinking about Mr.X. I was with someone, and there he suddenly is. In the same situation. It's like it was intruding in my life constantly, some way. I had to get him out. The daily rape went on, but he had the girlfriend. I don't know if what I felt really changed, but I did notice that the times I did check, it was 11:30 in the evening. And if you don't want to think certain thoughts, you can become quite stupid. I was thinking, isn't that a time when you should be with your girlfriend, not thinking about me? This until one evening, I was laying in my bed on my side, so I feel kind of tick on my shoulder, a kind of voice saying, shouldn't we? At that moment, I knew, it doesn't do that to me. That's one thing I've never experienced. But I can very much imagine it's a game between those two. So suddenly I was in their bedroom. If there was something I didn't want, was being involved in their relationship. It was like if I had been, let's say it's true, I had been the face of this full-size doll. His activity when moving it to this girlfriend, I mean, he moved me with him. So I suppose I might have spiced it up some way, I don't know. Rage I felt. I was furious. I didn't want anything to do with them. And there, in their bedroom, the anger, one thing I did manage was he stopped doing something to me. He stopped after that. But let's say he stayed 24/7 present in my body. I could feel it. It was the same kind of, yeah, he didn't go away. So okay. I know this was in the autumn somewhere because I hadn't moved. So after September, and so I still had to deal with his presence, and it still was an intrusion. I mean, when the raping went on, there was a while when I was thinking about should I talk with the police? It just there is someone. But what do I say? One thing I did. It was maybe a couple of years later. It was a dance partner of mine. I helped him with something, and he wanted to help me with talking with this Mr.X. So he did, and he came back and told me that he told me two things. One was that Mr.X really blamed me for the time that I had bumped into his girlfriend. I was thinking, is that the only thing he has to blame me after all these years, what has been going on? I bumped into his girlfriend, and I know the situation because I remember I was standing in the lady room, washing my hands, and his girlfriend came in and bumped into me, like, here I am, kind of thing. One thing I've been constant with is that I don't want any kind of attention from this woman, because from that kind of person I know that whatever attention I can get is not healthy. My inside man told me one thing about her. Says Nip, you get him next year. Oh, he made predictions I didn't get through, but a good translation to that would be she's fake. And it confirmed very much the impression I had of her, too. And there I find out she's lying as well. So my picture of her, yeah. The other thing he told me was He didn't want to talk to me, and his reason was that he didn't want to tell me how long I would have to wait for him. I might have had in my mind earlier that has to be something wrong over there. But at that moment, I could feel the disease I've been pulled into. Is there something I knew from the beginning? Would I sit and wait for him? I would have to sit and wait for the rest of my life. So, no, not a seat I would take. But actually, I think that that helped me a lot to get everything even more on a distance. So I think that is what I point where I name it kind of 6 to 7 years of telepathic relationship. So in my relationship with men, he was always involved. When I was meeting men within this salsa world. But outside there, what I've experienced, he hasn't involved himself at all. But, let's say, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago, I met someone on the street, someone who was always flirting, but I didn't really take serious. And now he wanted me to think that he was serious. We decided for having a date. And then comes a part of what I call him my cat-killing friend. I had to postpone that date because my cat was dying. The cat who came here first. But as well, suddenly, Mr.X turned up again. I could feel him very clear. And this time it was like, you do not intrude in my life anymore. I've had enough of it. That was one of my telephone calls, and I phoned him and said, hello, we have to talk about this. And said, but yeah, it didn't happen. And that date with this man, I was surprised. We were so much the same. Okay, that drama queen, drama king behavior, I don't really recognize in myself, but it was a clash. Like, whew. We were too much the same. It was really a surprise. So, it ended with that until I know this one, it was 3 years ago. We met on the street by this time of the year again, and we had a good talk. So, we decided again to meet. Who is there again? Mr.X. And me immediately writing a letter. I can't remember what I wrote. Probably my writing isn't so good, so. But I sent it, and it has to have been on a Sunday because I remember the date, 16th of November. It was the Monday. The day after, I went to the veterinary with my last cat, and him convincing me that she was dying. Actually, she's still alive, but so therefore the name of this friend of mine. We did meet, and interesting, but I don't think we wanted the same thing, so it ended there as well. But the funny thing was, I remember the day after I remember that date because I was counting the times. He said she has about 2-3 weeks or something. I went to the animal shop, pet shop, maybe, and really was searching for most delicatess food you could find to just make her eat. And I remember I was standing there crying. And then I walked home. I got to my door, and then I suddenly thought that I want to check with my neighbor, because he knows how to heal animals, so I changed door. I was aware that there was a car with a motor running just outside my door, but I didn't think about it. By the time I changed door, the car left, and in my head was immediately, that was Mr. X. Hadn't it been for my cat, who did recover, I would have gone on with this to kind of push it to the end, have a discussion. Whatever came out of it didn't matter, but just to talk like two normal beings. For once. But it ended there. And now I have forgotten one thing. This was maybe before the experience with my cat killing friend there. I met a woman who talked to dead people. It's not something I like to do, but I told her about this telepathic relationship I had for many years. She gave me something, a stupid little thing, but holding that in my hand, I suddenly felt clean. It had been going on so many years, and from the time before I also learned to clean myself. So I have never really experienced what clean was. It was completely out of my system. And I was carrying that thing around for some time. And then he did visit again when I met this man from Salsa. At the moment when I got this subject in my head and it started to run, turn around in my head, I strongly felt an energy pushing my tongue back in my mouth, like someone saying, "Oh, you don't talk about this." I told this energy that you may use my telephone, you may use my doorbell, but in this way you have no influence on my life or in my decisions. So it did leave. But it is the risk you take when you kind of, bring up these things again, that it returns. But if I think about where I was then and where I am now, then I think I'm not vulnerable for this in the same way as I was then. If I at this moment ask myself, would I like to meet him? It's very easy to say that it's too complicated, so no. And what is my experience of him? He has been beating me, he is been raping me. He, in my book, he's a racist. To turn things around would really mean an effort from two sides. And I doubt that interest is at his side, so that makes it easy. Do I believe it was true? He was a man of my life? I still do not know. I'm not easy to just take information, that's it. I can see it had a function for my growth in the direction to where I am now. I knew at the time I was obliged to, for both of our sake, to share the information I had. And those kind of information it just comes to one person, and the person has to do the job. It's nature. It's not like a message comes to two persons at the same time, and there they are. So did I miss paradise? Or was it all part of the disease? I just have no idea. So altogether it's been so much frustration, pain, and fear, and all kind of stuff I had to go through. I have learned a lot, and if I think about the path I've taken, what I have achieved, this time was really a part of that. And maybe that was all what it was. I did hear him say something. It was not to me personally, but I heard him talk about when he, as a child, came to the Netherlands. A part of him stayed in his home country. I suppose that was a part of him that is now raping and beating and abusing and all kind of things. If he could kind of join with that part, I mean, it would be a person with so much power shining, and someone with shining of happiness. That's a picture I get if I try to imagine those two sides put together. I suppose he hasn't. I just got that message, so that part of him is still running around. So what I have experienced is something actually you can compare with Uri Geller, if you know who that is. And it's someone who can move objects with their minds. But this is not, I don't know if he can do that, but he can do things. And I want him to be aware of that. Because am I the only one he has been bothering in this manner? Why should I believe that? I might have been the only one who has been able to kind of put a name on it and seen it as a reality and for what it was. That might be. But subconscious people might have had very strange reactions to him because somewhere under there was something going on. I'm not in the kind of blaming game. You can't blame someone for doing things if they are not aware of it. But what I then want to do is make someone aware of it. Then the person have maybe possibility to stop. So this was a kind of not such a beautiful story, but it is precisely as I can remember and as I experienced it. Please surprise me if you have experienced something like this. Oh, please let me know. The only thing I've had in mind for next week was again a story, and that being about my cats. Even if you don't like cats, and even if you have cats, I think I have quite special stories to tell. And it is from the, let's say, 21st of November. It's actually 16 years on the date that I've had my cats here in the Netherlands and had a family of 4. Oh, there's someone complaining. my very last. So this story of kind of remembering my cats I had in my mind. Because at that moment I really thought she was dying, my last little. I want to spend some time with a quiet head. And we'll see what turns up. The technology, it doesn't really work with me, but probably I will have something for next week. If you want to reach me, you see on my YouTube page my Hotmail address, radioessencehotmail.com. Have a nice life.